Westworld, Episode 8, Tracy Decay. This was a really good episode. So, we're coming off of the crazy epic reveal of Bernard in the last episode and the murder of Teresa. We still have the disappearance of Elise, which we actually get the answer to, which naturally for the show brings up yet another question. But I love the way this episode played out. I think they gave us quite a few answers in this one. So we have, of course, the stuff with Bernard. We have a crazy revelation with Maeve that appears to be pretty relevant to Delores, I think, and it's kind of interesting the way that everything just so happened to play out, where Delores is like the one that kind of goes nuts officially, where they don't recognize it, but Maeve is the second person to kind of lose it, and it's like, oh, she told Maeve, the whole These Violent Delights thing. So that transferred to Maeve, but this episode gave us a pretty interesting flashback as to how Maeve kind of went nuts before and how she was kind of truly alive, as the Man in Black put it. And I like that. I thought it was really cool. It was very surprising when they did that revelation. And I was like, oh, this has happened before. This is like before anything, even before Delores. Maeve was kind of the first one to really just go insane and like not even respond to normal prompts or anything like that. She was just lost and distraught that the Man in Black, he killed her daughter. So I love the way they played that, and it shows, we got an answer as to why Maeve was actually transferred, which was something she brought up herself, like, where's the girl now, and, why was I transferred to begin with, and I thought that was really cool. I was like, alright, I didn't think it was that big of a deal either, just like Maeve, where she's like, you know what, forget it. I was like, it's not that big of a deal either, why she was transferred. I just was like, whatever, over time, they were just like, well, new narrative, whatever. Maybe they even replaced somebody, they made her the new madam because it was Clementine. So it was like, I didn't think it was anything, and then we get this crazy reveal at the end where she was going nuts. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the crazy stuff going on with Arnold and whatever he had, kind of planted within the park, or has planted, within the park. But when Ford used Arnold's old technique, he used the music to kind of calm her down. Maybe that was kind of what triggered it, or kind of what kept things going. Maybe it wasn't really, Delores. Maybe she kind of reactivated something else that was still in there. Well, clearly she did, but it was just interesting. I was like, alright, that's a cool reveal. Maeve in general was just absolutely insane in this episode. It was really great, like watching her go through and, her core code is changed so she can actually hurt humans if she wants to, and Felix decides that he's going to help her. He decides not to, brick her and, wipe her out. And when she cut Sylvester, I was like, holy crap. I didn't think she was about to do that. Like, I know she didn't like the guy, but I didn't think she was going to, like, murder him. And then she slits his throat, basically. So he's dying on the ground, and she gives Felix, like, the little soldering thing, and she's like, well, here, we'll probably need him. And it's like she just almost murdered this dude. She slit his throat, he's bleeding out, and Felix has to like burn his neck to cauterize the wound. And so I'm watching it, and I hit the play button. I'm like, dang, this is only like 30 minutes into the episode. It's really getting crazy right now. So she's going full force in this, and then they give her even crazier control, where she's got abilities like Ford, and she's just walking around, and it's like, she's getting like free alcohol, like simple stuff from the start. And then it gets deeper and deeper because she starts to have these flashbacks, a lot like Delores, which was another thing I think they gave us quite a few answers on for this episode. But I thought it was great. I was like, man, she's going through, and she ends up killing the new Clementine because she has like this crazy flashback, kind of mid-sequence almost, like just in motion. She just ends up getting a flashback to her fighting against the Man in Black after he killed her daughter. And I love that. And she ends up killing the other Clementine, and it's like, oh crap, I'm getting surrounded, it's time for me to take off. So she like whispers in people's ears and has like some of the cowboys like shoot, the cops, or well, I guess the, sheriffs and whatever. So, she's on the run, and then she gets captured again, of course. And so she's going into like the full army mode and stuff like that. So in this next episode, I'm assuming the next episode is when she officially breaks out with her little team, which I know based on the promo is like at least Hector Escatan and some of the like 2 other people, but just the way it was done was nuts. I was like, her storyline was pretty phenomenal in this episode. And it just got crazier and crazier. And then the reveal, just from the Man in Black, added to her storyline as well, where that was when she first came to life. And they kind of add that. They kind of add to that moment through the promo for the next episode, where Bernard is trying to like look through her system, and she grabs his hand and she's like, we've kind of played this game before. And I was like, oh, this is really gonna get good. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I'm super excited for what Maeve is going to be doing. Delores and William have a pretty crazy adventure in this episode as well, where we get to see what Delores is going through. And I think they've kind of just shown it kind of full out in this one, and I thought that was really cool. Where, she goes to the water and she sees that she's dead at one point. She sees herself in the water. She hears the voice that says, "Find me." And so she freaks out and she turns around. And this is the first time they've like truly addressed it, like from her perspective, where she looks around and she doesn't see anyone. She's like, she looks to find William and it's like, what the heck is happening? Where is he? And I love that. And I think what's happening is that we're getting to see her perspective of, what's going on with William and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think she might actually be, basically she's having like somehow hallucinations. Like she's actually hallucinating that she's talking with him, because she's going through this process of finding her hometown. So she goes through this process, she gets to the hometown, and we find out that the original town is gone now. Like that's what that steeple was. I thought that was a part of Ford's new narrative, but that's actually where he began. That's where they started off with the park. That was the first town. It wasn't Sweetwater. So I love that. I was like, I didn't expect that at all. She goes to this town. Initially, it's like they found it. And she goes through and she's seeing all these people and she sees the little girl. And this is her memory of her walking through the town. And it's so early on that the people are just out. Like, they're basically just testing out the host. Like, they're just having to walk around and they're having a bunch of other host dance. And that's where we get the scene again of, I guess, the host who, met William initially. And she walks past Delores and she smiles at her and stuff. And we also see her with the Man in Black, where he recognizes her, which is just like another hint that William is totally the Man in Black. Unless it just ends up being Logan, which would be interesting too. But, they keep just dropping all those hints, and I'm like, they're kind of just making it official at this point. But, she sees her, and so she's going through, and they're guiding the host, like, stay with your partner and stuff. And then she jumps from that, like, initial test day to a different day where a bunch of people just kept getting killed, and apparently she was the one that did it, and then she's holding the gun to her own head, and then that's when William shows up. And so I think the way it's happening is she broke down, or whatever happened. She was going crazy like 30 years ago or something like that, and then she's going through it again this time. Somehow they fixed her in the past, and now she's like broken for a second time, and she's reliving it all over again. The first time she like had a major malfunction and she was trying to find the maze, so now she's going on this journey to find the maze the second time. I think that's officially how it's going, because they did that before where you could tell that it was jumping through time, because they would do stuff like, oh, William and it's like, 2 dudes and 2 horses, but you don't see that until they change the angle, and then it's like horses right next to her. So they'd done it before, and it was very clear. It's like they're clearly jumping through time with her character. But, and I've said this before as well, like when they did the scene on the train, she's basically going through all of her paces again. And in places she's seeing herself, because I guess that was the first time she broke down, but she's basically she's reliving the first time she broke down while breaking down currently, so she can see herself in all these different positions. And that's why she ends up falling herself or seeing herself dead in a different location, is because she's going through these different times. And maybe she's done this a million different times. Maybe that's why she was dead in the water that one time. Or maybe they died in the water in general, that last time with William. Or, well, she did at least, and he kept going. But it was really interesting, seeing her go through this, and them kind of, they even did it visually, like the when they zoom in on her and when she's like in the town and it like the sunlight actually changes color, like it physically changes color and you can see it. And I was like, that's cool that they're actually going through this, and they put her back in her old outfit when like she first went through the town and everything, and then she sees herself in her current outfit, like the sort of cowgirl outfit. So it was just interesting the way they did it. But based on what I saw in this episode, my theory now is that she's actually hallucinating going through these experiences with them before. And I guess technically she's not really, in a sense she's hallucinating, but at the same time she's not, because she's kind of just reliving that first moment where something happened. Like, and that's why it's hard to tell exactly how they're doing it, because the part where she held the gun to herself, it's hard to say why that would happen in the old town. Plus, she was in her current outfit. She wasn't in her old outfit when she had the gun to her head. And then that's when William came in. He was like, what are you doing? So it's a little hard to tell exactly how they're playing it, but it seems like they're kind of compounding a bunch of different times when she was malfunctioning and, basically going for the maids. And maybe just some other things are thrown in there as well. Like, this just happened to be her narrative when she was killing people. And then she killed herself at the end. Like, that could be it too. It could be her screwing up, plus that compounded with her actual old narrative. So they gave us a couple answers there, which I thought were good, but they kind of really explained just the way it looks, how everything's operating, and her getting to the town and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool, and us finding out that the old town, or like that steeple, which I thought was being built for the narrative, was actually torn down previously, because when they walk away you can see the steeple, but you also see like the tops of some of the other buildings and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, and they just kind of covered it up, with the sand. So I thought that was pretty sweet. But then we have our other storyline, of course, Ford and Bernard, which is, I don't know how much crazier that's going to get, but we only got 2 more episodes, so I assume a lot. And the way they did this storyline was great, because it goes through and we have Ford accepting what he's done with Bernard, and accepting what Bernard, in a sense, has done for himself, like with having these emotions and things like that. And just the way it goes through, and he's like, basically, all you have to do is erase all this stuff and make it look like Teresa basically died on her own and killed herself. And I'll get rid of these horrible memories. I'll let you continue on. You're that fine line between host and human. Like, he's in the middle, and they have a good conversation where Ford's like, I never really looked at the difference between hosts and humans. Like, humans have closed loops. Loops close just as much as the hosts do, where we make, insignificant choices and things like that. And he never really saw the difference between alive or not alive. And that's another huge thing that they did with Maeve in this episode. Living or, being dead. Or existing and then being, truly alive, as close to human as you could be, of course, for a host. So that conversation that they had, I thought was great. And the way it just continues to play out may or may not get Ford in trouble. He might actually get caught because of what they did with Bernard and Stubbs, where he's like, I'm sorry that this happened and stuff like that. And at first it's simple, because he's like, forgive me for intruding, but it's kind of my job to know what's going on. So of course, in that regard, it's like, yeah, of course someone would be like, I don't know what you mean, and then it's like, well, I know because I'm supposed to, and then they'd be like, oh, well, yes. But of course, for Bernard, it was just really weird, where he's just like, no, we weren't like that at all. And of course, Stubbs does his job, like, he knows what he's talking about, and it didn't, it didn't seem just like a normal thing where it's like, oh, well, it's deniable or whatever. It's just like, that was somewhat weird that he just kept denying it and acting like he didn't give a crap about Teresa. And he's just like, okay. And, Stubbs kind of just lets him go. And he looked a little suspicious to me, which is basically like his job, is to be suspicious of everything that's happening as far as security. So, I don't know. That might be like his first little moment where he's like, that was really weird that he would keep denying that over something so simple. Like, yeah, it's a personal matter, but I knew it was happening, so no big deal. But it was just interesting, and I like the way it played out. And of course, we have Sizemore. He's now tasked, by Delos to do, come up with a brand new mission to continue Teresa's work, which we find out wasn't for like a secret company. It was for Delos. So his job is to basically reprogram this host who was formerly Dolores' father. I can't imagine that that'll work perfectly because it's like, oh, he'll do, and I'm like, oh, that's a terrible idea. Something bad is going to happen from that. I know it. So I'm excited to see how that plays out because he's supposed to just be like, all right, well, he just gets smuggled out, no big deal. But he was destroyed because they could not fix him, and it's just like, he's perfect, whatever. It's like something good is gonna come from that. I'm pretty sure. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. But things are coming down to the wire with only 2 episodes, and I'm really excited to see how they play this out because it's been a crazy ride so far, and things just keep getting crazier because we still have this whole Arnold thing. Like, he's in here somehow. I don't know if he's just digital at this point or if he is literally the dude in the middle of the maze. It's hard to say, but somewhere in this code is a mental version of Arnold in some way, shape, or form. And Arnold, I'm assuming, is the one that had Bernard kill Elise. Like, that's the only thing I can think of, is that somehow Arnold was like, well, something about her sending the secret and blowing this stuff wide open is going to screw up my plan. So I need you, Bernard, to go kill her. And we get like that super quick flash after Bernard is like, hey, did you ever tell anyone, or did you ever force me to kill anyone else? And Ford's just like, absolutely not. Like, he's very genuine about like, no, this is like the first time I've ever had to do that. Quick flash of Elise being choked by Bernard, and it's like, wow, she's officially gone. So technically they've killed 2 people in the last 2 episodes. And now we have to go through that in the next episode as well, where Bernard is having, just like our other big characters with Delores and Maeve, he's starting to get these flashes as well, where he's remembering certain things that he did that he's not supposed to remember. So I can't wait to see how that plays out, especially the Maeve thing, because if he's starting to remember and Ford has him, and of course, like, this is like the start of it because he was supposed to just go along thinking he was human, but now that he's had that official realization, he can kind of begin his sort of Maeve Delores process where he gets to remember, I guess, based on what Arnold wants him to do. So now that he has that realization, he's allowed to remember it, and that is what I'm truly excited for these next 2 episodes. I don't know if it'll happen officially in the next episode and he'll end up teaming up with Maeve or whatever he wants to do, but that I'm looking forward to. They did a bunch of great stuff. Teddy's starting to remember now because he knocks out the Man in Black. They both, however, end up getting captured by Wyatt's crazy people. So there's a lot to that as well. Like, they're still looking for the maze, and I'm assuming they're getting closer to it, but it's hard to tell. There's just a lot of madness happening, but really looking forward to these next 2 episodes. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And my main question is really on Maeve at this point. I want to know how you guys think that her storyline is going to play out, because she has such a grand plan, and it could work, but at the same time, it could easily fall apart. Like, they could kill her off by the end of the season, as well as the other hosts that are with her, because it's way too risky to, try to wipe her memory or anything like that. It's just way too difficult, especially with the core code thing. That probably wouldn't work anyway. So who knows? It would just be a matter of time, I guess, because she kind of lost it the first time. Just like Delores, this is her second time. This isn't her first venture into, experiencing a more, human existence. So it's hard to say how it'll play out. Personally, I don't think they'll kill her off. I think they might kill one of the people that she's with, but I think she might make it, but maybe not escape. It's hard to say if she'll escape, because that would, expand it to literally the outside world. And it's just hard to say, how far that would really go, because it's like, alright, let's send out a search team and, stuff like that. So I don't know if she'll really make it out of the park, but I don't think they'll, like, destroy her and, erase her. But it's hard to say. Some story has to end sad, and some of them already have, I guess, but I think some more have to before the end of this season, based on this show. But I want to know your theories, and of course, what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.